And I turned around and I looked at my body in my bed, my human body. I said, I'm dying. And then I started to travel. I had 3 gifts planted in me like seeds. I also started seeing auras on people. So when I look at you, your aura is very clear and
Really?
it's healthy. The second gift is I learned that I could leave my body like I did when I first was going through this death process. The third gift that I was given was the ability to still my mind, but I felt the presence of the divine as I started to hear the voice of Christ in the left ear. The first time that I really heard it, clear as you and I talking right now, is a woman came in about 40 and she collapsed at work. And the voice said, put your hand on her right foot and push on it. So I did that like this and I pushed and her hand went, and the voice said, see, she has clonus.
What did everyone else think?
They can't figure it out. They're like, how do you do that?
Dr. Rod Chelberg died of an allergic reaction when he was a child. When he came back to Earth, he found he had divine abilities and was able to use them and communication with the other side to help treat his patients once he became a doctor. Please enjoy this interview with Dr. Chelberg, and if you like videos like this, make sure to subscribe to this channel.
What happened is I had strep throat, and the strep either goes into your heart or it goes into your kidneys, and fortunately mine went into the kidneys. So they gave me penicillin, big doses of penicillin. They didn't know how to treat it. And 2 weeks in the hospital, somewhere towards the end of it, I had what's called an allergic reaction to it. And so it's 8 o'clock at night. My parents are leaving. The nurse comes in. She gives me my shot in the butt. Love that. And no big deal. But something was wrong. Intrinsically, something was wrong, and I became frightened. And I developed what's called tunnel vision. So all I could see was what was straight in front of me. It didn't bother me too much, but I was beginning scared. Then what happened, that tunnel vision stayed, but I disconnected from my body and I floated up about 3-4 inches. And I could see the room, and the lights they were still bright, but they were off, if that makes any sense. The nurses did not turn it off, but my vision was changing. And then my body rotated up to an upright position. And I turned around and I looked at my body in my bed, my human body, and I was terrified. I said, I'm dying, not knowing what it was. And then I started to travel, and I was pulled into this darkness, which became even more terrifying. But then I saw this white pinpoint of light, and I started to say, oh, that's home. And I floated towards this. And as I did that, all my fear went away and was replaced with this beautiful feeling of peace, this feeling of oneness, this feeling like, you're on a trip and you're going home. It feels good. All concepts of Rod, all concepts of space, time, concepts of hospitals, people and cars, that all faded away. And as I went through this, and as I've talked to more people, I realized I returned to consciousness. There was no more mind. It was just I am. And I got closer to the light. It got brighter and brighter. And it's actually a sphere that you can look inside, and it's infinite dimensions of beautiful white light. And I almost made to the sphere, and I'm thinking, oh, this is so nice. I was so comfortable. But they revived me. And it was like being shot out of a cannon back into my body, almost with a jolt. And I was like, why? But then I'm a little kid, I think I'm 7 or 8 years old. And I thought, oh, that was just a dream. I had no idea what a near-death experience was. I didn't even know that there was organizations that study this stuff, because that's kind of crazy. You don't tell people stuff like that. So I passed it off as a dream, 2 years ago, I met another ER doctor named Jeff O'Driscoll, and I was talking. He too has psychic experiences. He says, "Rod, you had a near-death experience." And I said, "What is that?" But he explained it to me, and I said, "Yep, did that. I did that. I did that." And I went, "Oh, okay." So that's what it was, and it explained a lot.
So you didn't realize this was a near-death experience until 2 years ago.
No, I did not.
Did you, at that point, because in between then and now you had gifts and a lot of other experiences that I definitely want to talk about, but did you associate those with this
Not at
first experience?
first. Not at first. I did
Mhm.
not realize that the near-death experience, um, that in my heart, in my being, I had three gifts planted in me like seeds, and they had to mature through life because I'm a young man. I get older, then there's college, there's girls, there's school, the important things, right? And so all those gifts got shut down. But initially, in second and third grade, I would talk to my friends, say, "Do you see colors on people's hearts?" I said, "I see this one has a red heart, this has a green, and this is blue." And they're going, "No, Rod, we don't see that." And you want to fit in. So I stopped talking about it. But green is, I later learned, is divine life. And it's also the color of medicine. Red is divine love. Blue is divine creativity. So artists, people who are very intellectual, their heart is blue. I also started seeing auras on people, and I couldn't figure that out. So when I look at you, your aura is very clear, and
Really?
and it's healthy, and it's like, okay, so it goes out about 3 inches, and it tells me you're kind of like your level of spirituality. So I started seeing auras on people and colors. So that was the first gift. The second gift is I learned that I could leave my body like I did when I first was going through this death process. And I heard the song, The Moody Blues, floating among the stars. You probably don't know that song, but it was back in 69. Anyway, I thought, wouldn't it be nice to float? So I laid down in my bedroom, I closed my eyes and just imagined myself floating. And I found out that I could. So I floated up to the top of the ceiling and I rotated and I saw my body sitting in my bed sleeping. As this went on, we grew up on a farm in central Minnesota. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to see the farm? And you can do that. You can actually float out, and there's my dad, there's the barn, there's the field. You have no feeling of hot, cold, any sense. It's just awareness. He can't see me, and I can't talk to him. And in my last trip, I went to Paris.
From Minnesota?
Yep.
Wow.
I said, how far can I go? And so I did. I went to Paris. Why? I don't know.
Why not?
Well, so I'm floating above the cafes and I'm seeing the checkered red and white cloths. And I know it's Paris because I could see the Eiffel Tower. And I said, okay, I'm in Paris for whatever reason. I have no idea. But then I came back. That was my last trip. The third gift that I was given and was the ability to still my mind to a really quiet state. And in that state, I guess it's meditation. I learned to breathe, but I felt the presence of the divine, this warm love that fills your heart and fills you with peace. And it's like, I'm good. I don't want to come back. It's really nice. But that was my gift, is that I had the ability to sit down in a chair, turn the lights out, do some deep breathing, and then feel this presence of love. And that was a very important part for me, rather than the floating and seeing colors, to feel the presence of the divine. We can talk about that in a little bit, but powerful, powerful. tremendous peace, tremendous love, and tremendous quiet. You can't hear a thing. And it's just, I'm content. I'm home. So that's my near-death experience. That was my first one.
I'm first curious about when you say you connect with the divine in meditation. Is the divine God?
It's in you. It's in your heart, and it's red. And so you're basically a spirit living in a body. And the analogy is you're the spirit and you get into your car and you drive your car. Now your car thinks it's alive. It says, oh, I'll go get some gas. Oh, I need to go get some groceries. And oh, I got a flat tire. Man, that hurts. You see, you've misidentified. But when you get into meditation or these near-death experiences, you've gotten out of the car and the car is still running, but it's not going to move because you're not driving it. And when you do that, your limitations of I'm a person, I have this life, I've got bills, I got to eat, all that goes away and you experience tremendous freedom. I mean, step out of your car and look up and there's the sky and just absorb that for a second. We don't do that. I got to get into the house after. We're constantly distracted, but that's what it's like. So in your heart, if you will, right here, there's my heart. And we have all these constraints, all these concepts, all these distractions, and then our self-doubts and I'm not good enough, all that stuff. And you have to say, oh, in this episode, your heart opens up. It's like a prison door opens and the light comes out. This beautiful light flows out of you. And that's grace. And that brings you peace. And you do that more and more, and your life becomes more and more peaceful. Things work out. You don't worry so much. It's like I have, in the Bible it says I have bread and meat and things that the world doesn't see. Well, that's the love in your heart. So, and people will say, well, how do you know you have a spirit? I say, well, do you have a heart? And I like to say, they go, well, yeah. Well, what do you think's making that heart work? It's the only organ that's doing something, right? And I like to play, and I'll say, that each heartbeat that's God knocking at your door saying, will you open the door and let me in? So I know we're going off on a tangent from your near-death experience, but that's what it's a warmth. It's a creamy white light that comes out of you, and it's very sweet and it's very delicious. And you learn to let it surround you and to be at peace. And then whatever happens in the world, you go, it has no effect on me. So I choose to live in peace.
That's beautiful and an amazing gift. I can see why it's one of the most important ones to you.
Look at it this way. God talks to you all day long. Are you listening? And sometimes he uses intermediaries and he kind of like interrupts and tells through them the message he wants you to hear. I don't know if you've ever been in a bookstore and you're looking for something and all of a sudden a book falls down. And you go, this is the book I've been looking for. Well, that's God saying, oh, you need a little help. It's like a GPS, if you will. You need a little help. And, oh, here's the book. Okay, so I'll read this. And it changes your life. So it's like God's always talking to us. Are you listening? And you have to really learn to still your mind and get quiet and create a pause in your thinking for the divine to speak. Because if you're talking all the time, who can talk to you? I don't know if you ever had that experience with, gee, I did this, I did that, and dot, dot, dot. Look at the watch. It's like, okay.
That's good advice. That's very good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And simple, but powerful.
It's so simple. It takes if you can just stop thinking for 3 seconds, you'll get your answer. I guarantee it.
So then you do become a doctor. You have a very extensive history working in medicine and especially in the ER. What guidance did you receive as a physician that aided with patient care?
Let me back up a little bit. I had to do some homework first. So in 2004, I went through a divorce, and all divorces are nasty, usually. And so I turned to a book called A Course in Miracles. And that's a self-study book on finding the God within you. It's a study guide, and it's got workbook lessons. And I started to read this. It just grabbed me and would not let me go. And then I started meditating, first for 5 minutes, and then 10. Pretty soon, after a few years, I was up to 2 hours. That I could just be so quiet. You're like, in the ER, you work 3 14-hour shifts. And then the rest of the week is like, you're a zombie, you're trying to recover, you see. And so I would use that to recover, and I would read it. So that took 3 years. After 3 years of doing that daily practice, I started to have what I call mystical experiences. There was always a knowing quality. People would come in, and it was like I was given the answer to their problems. And it was always right. And so that was the first. So first, I felt the presence of something. There's a trauma patient, and it's crazy. People are running around yelling and screaming and doing all that. And I say, everybody calm down. And in doing that, this presence came in, and everybody, it's just like you and I having a casual conversation. Will you please intubate the patient? Will you start an IV? Will you start this drip? Will you call the surgeon? Not a big, like on TV, the drama, like that. Anyway, so the first is you feel a presence, and it's a presence of warmth and peace, and it radiates out from your heart into the room, and everybody starts to go, oh, I just relax, and I'm thinking clearly, and I don't have to shout, and it's really wonderful. So that's the first part of this growth process. The second is I started to hear the voice of Christ in the left ear. And I have so many stories I could do all day, but I'll just share a few. The first time that I really heard it, clear as you and I talking right now, is a woman came in about 40 in a business suit, and she collapsed at work and basically stopped breathing. And so that she comes in by ambulance, and they got a face mask on her, and they put her in the bed. That's all you get. What happened, right? You don't know. You don't know what medicine she's on, no trauma. And the voice said, put your hand on her right foot and push on it. So I did that like this, and I pushed, and her hand went, And that's a very unique sign of brain poisoning. And I said, and the voice said, see, she has clonus, abnormal reflexes. And then the next thing it said is she has Tylenol poisoning. And she has ammonia building up in her brain, which is lethal. That's why she's dying. So in the ER, we ordered common tests. I said, but I want a Tylenol level and an ammonia level. That's like a third layer test, fourth layer. It's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you ordering these tests? I get criticized, but they came back and they were all critical. So with Tylenol poisoning, you've got about a day to give them the antidote. After that, there's nothing you can do. So the time she got there to the time she got the antidote was half an hour. So we gave her the antidote, and 3 days later, she was clear as a bell and doing great. And it's like, so I talked to her. I said, why were you taking so much Tylenol? She says, I'm not. I'm taking 2 tablets, like it says. but the pain medicine had the equivalent amount of Tylenol in it. So she was taking double the lethal dose of Tylenol, which poisoned her liver, so she couldn't take care of the poisons in her body, so it goes up into her head. That's pretty clear guidance.
And what did everyone else think?
They can't figure it out. They're like, how do you do that? And then they just said, well, he's just a smart doctor, or he was just shooting in the wind, hoping he'd hit something. The second one, a 15-year-old boy was running at the gym in the playground, having a good time, and he fell down and he landed on his chest. So he scummed his hands, his knees, his nose, and he goes home and he's talking to his mom. It's after dinner, and she says, we should go to the ER. Kid falls down. You take your kid to the ER? I don't think so. But she did. And of course, it's my patient. And I'm listening to him, hearing this story. He just has abrasions. No other symptoms, just I'm scun up. So we fixed that. And I put my stethoscope on his chest, and the voice said, he has metabolic syndrome, which is a syndrome, and he had a heart attack. That's why he passed out, because he had an abnormal heart rhythm. So on a 15-year-old child, I ordered a cardiac panel, an enzyme panel, and everybody's rolling their eyes. At 6:30, my shift ends at 7. He's lost it. He's really got to go home. And there was snickering from the nurses. And it came back. It should be less than 0.1. It came back at 3.57. That woke him up big time. The kid had a heart attack. And so we started him on rescue medications, just like an adult. The next day, we shipped him to Boston Children's Hospital. And they put a stent in his heart. On the main artery here in your heart, it turns 90 degrees. His was 95% closed. And that's called a widowmaker. I mean, you do not survive that. So they put a stent in, saved his life. Everything was fine. But to get that kind of guidance is pretty amazing.
A miracle.
It is. And they're like, why did you, or on a 15-year-old, why do you order that? That's so out of the box. There's a friend of mine's an ER doctor, and she got a kid that fell down. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Whatever, patch him up. And she's walking out the door, and the voice talked to her for the first time. It scared the crap out of her. And it said, remember Rod Chelberg? A friend of mine. And she's like, what? And she's looking around. Nobody's there. So she keeps walking. She stops again. Remember Rod Chelberg? And she went, cardiac enzyme. So she does the test. He too had metabolic syndrome, and he was in Boston. It came back at 4 something. And they're like, how does this happen? So it's not only me, but it goes to other people. And they ended up, he too had a lesion in his heart, and they saved his life. And she was freaked out that the voice is that clear and that specific.
Just like talking to anyone else.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I touch you and I say, oh, you have heart disease, and you're going, right. And then I do the test, and yes, you do. Now you're laying in a hospital bed saying, we have to do heart surgery on you right now because you're going to die in the next 90 minutes. It would wake you up, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You'd be like, that can't be. But we're all different, and that's what happened. So I could fill you up with lots of stories, but hearing is the second spiritual sense that developed for me. And then the third spiritual sense, now I'm starting to see the auras on people's hearts, and I see their aura, a trauma patient, and I'm like, this guy's got a dark aura. He's not going to make it. Or this one's got a grayish aura. If I really move, he's going to live. You see it? Or this one's got a light white or a light gray, and I get a clue. Where was I going with that? But yeah, spiritual vision was the third sense that I got. So starting off, the first thing I noticed is I could see into your body. So a person says, I fell, my arm's hurting, and I see a fracture in her arm.
Really? Just
Yep.
looking at them regularly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I wrote about this in my book. There was a little old lady with dementia in a wheelchair, family taking care of her. And they said every time we touch her knee, she screams in pain. And she didn't fall. Nothing's happened. Nobody picked her up. But for 2 days, she just screams. And so right below the kneecap, I could see she had a spontaneous fracture in her femur. And so we x-rayed it, and sure enough, there's a fracture. So we put her in a cast, and that took care of it. But I have stories that spiritual sense comes. And then the ultimate is when somebody dies, my habit always has been to pray for somebody. And my prayer has always been, I bring your hand to my chest, and I'll say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Because I grew up Catholic. And I said, all right, my thought is, I don't know this person. It doesn't matter, but I know that somebody asked the divine to take this person home. That's my last job as a doctor. Well, after reading A Course in Miracles, I thought, I wonder what would happen if I asked Christ, the divine, to come. And that's stunning, because the divine, Christ, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, divine love. An 80-year-old lady came into the ER. She was in cardiac arrest. They were doing CPR. I took over. We did CPR for another 20 minutes, and it was flatline the whole time. There wasn't a single beat. But we did everything we could. And so I called the code. I said, we have to stop. There's other people we got to see. And so everybody leaves the room, and I always do this in private. And I'm praying for her, and I said, divine brother, take this lady home. And what happened is he allowed me to see him do this. And so there's a red on the left side, on my left side, there's a bead that's bright pink. And I see her aura completely, glasses, hair, everything. She sits up to about 45 degrees, and she turns to me and says, thank you. I could hear it. And then she turns into a white amorphous bead, and the two melded together. And then they went across my right side and up. As I looked, the whole ER turned into scintillating white light, and these beautiful golden doors opened, and these two misty arms came out and just brought them back in. And I leaned over, I wanted to look inside, what is that? But then it shut real fast, and it was all black and white back into the ER again. But this feeling of tremendous love and peace just permeated my being. And I just said, I have to hold on to the rails for a minute here just to get my head back. And then I had to leave because there's always another emergency. Got to go. But what I decided is that event, I now call it giving birth to heaven. So I've delivered babies. It's not my favorite job. I don't like it. But this is giving birth to heaven. And if somebody asks, it doesn't matter who it is, I'm going off on a tangent, but we do not die alone.
Ever?
Ever. You have the choice. So you've got your human friends and family, but you cross that veil that's called death, and there's angels, and there's family members, and there's the divine. And it's a choice point. Do you want to go home, or do you want to come back? You get a choice. But I have witnessed hundreds of deaths. There was always a presence, always a feeling. No one ever died alone. And that's tremendous peace. It's just like, I'm just going to float now. And it's wonderful.
That's incredibly comforting and reassuring. And I wonder we get a lot of comments on this channel from people who've lost their loved ones recently or not recently, and um, they're still grieving. What's your advice to them?
The grieving is you and I are sharing energy right now, and we're connecting. You feel that love, and I feel your love because we're all one in spirit. So I die or you die, you feel the loss of that energy, and you have to let the divine in to heal you. But you get caught in a what's called a limbic loop, and all you feel is the loss. You put so much energy that my validation is from this person. I'm having trouble. So you need to say, I need to fill this hole up with love, because your loved one is right there next to you saying, I want to talk to you and let you feel my presence. Your grief is in the way. You're blocking me. So again, pause. Say, you know what? I'm just going to put the grief down for just a few seconds. And all of a sudden, there he is. So my analogy, in World War II, in the war, they could not see in the dark, and they're fighting blind. As technology improved, now we can see in the dark because we have these night vision goggles, right? Energy, spiritual energy vibrates so fast the human eye can't keep up. And we believe everything our eyes show us. But what if they're wrong? What if your senses are all wrong to reinforce this world? And what if you put on, what are these 3D goggles they have?
Virtual reality goggles.
Yeah, okay. What if you put something like that on and go, there's mom? You see, it's just, you have to open your mind, let loved ones in. So you can say, I accept my grief. You have to accept it. And if you have to cry, you have to cry. You're human. Perfectly fine. You accept, but then you have to rest. Just give yourself a rest. And you get so tired, it just keeps firing and firing. You got to rest and just say, I'm going to stop thinking about this now and get out of the environment. Go for a walk, go to a museum, go to a flower show, whatever. Get out of your environment, and then you stop on a park bench and you release. Forgiveness, let go, let God, and you can ask the divine, please help me with this because I'm really hurting. Children, I find very difficult. I've lost 2 children in the ER, and it's a real wow. But you practice this, okay, they were here kind of like for a summer school short course, and I got it now, I'm out of here. And look at a bigger picture. Your loved ones, your family is still here. Your distant relatives, they're all around you. And you say, I want to feel them. And stop thinking, rest, and then just for a moment, just let it go and say, I want to hear my son. I want to hear my dad. I want to hear my mom. See, assuming you've had a good relationship with them, but sometimes there's reconciliation that occurs. My mom had her issues, and we've had reconciliation because of that.
After her death?
Yep. I couldn't do it while she was alive. For me, it was very difficult. I just like, no, I'm good. I don't want to be around you. But when she's died, she's no longer Anne, she's spirit. And spirits have no ego. And their love, and they still have blocks. And you can say, I'm going to let that go and forgive it. That releases both of us. And you're filled with love. This man, I'm going off on a tangent again. I'm sorry.
I love the tangents. I love them.
I gave a lecture on death and dying, and this man pulled me aside. He said, "Can I just talk to you?" And we went right through that scenario. His 11-year-old daughter was murdered. She had a summer dress on, and he sat down, he's crying, and he says, "I'm hurting so bad." And on top of that, they didn't catch the killer, so it's unresolved, and it's just playing in his mind, playing in his mind. And I said, "Okay, I don't always do this, and I don't know why it happens, but it does." And I'm talking to this man, and there's a little girl sitting there in a blue and white summer dress, right opposite him. And I said, "Okay, just breathe with me. Just slow your breathing down. Just let it go. See her as she was, you know?" And he says, "Okay." I said, "Just let the anger go, the frustration and the hurt." And I said, and he says, "Okay, I'm calm." I said, "Just rest." I said, "I want you to put your hands out like this." And he does that. And then I said, "There's a little girl." I didn't know she was a girl. "There's a little girl sitting here with a blue and white dress, gold hair, and she's holding your hands. And she's saying, 'Daddy, I'm okay. Daddy, I'm fine. Daddy, let go.'" And it wasn't my voice. It was her. And he just stopped. He says, "I can feel her hands touching me." And all of his anger, all of his judgment and his fears were poof, gone. And I said, that's what you have to do. You have to create an opening because your loved ones want to talk to you still. But if you put all that anger and hurt, you're pushing them away. Well, that's not working, is it? So you say, my wife her name is Jody. Her dad is a dentist, was a dentist, and he loved pennies, and he's a prankster. And so we're always finding pennies. Whenever I help Jody, there's a penny on the ground. Why? I don't know. He was a dentist, and he says, "You've got to floss your teeth. You got to floss your teeth." Jody says, "If I hear that one more time." So now, have you seen these green dental picks with the floss in them? I was at the Home Depot yesterday, and there's 2 of them on the ground, and I'm helping a friend buy parts. I said, "Who flosses their teeth in the Home Depot?" And then cigarette butts I get, but dental, and I hear this laughter. It's like, okay, they communicate with you. Judy, a friend of Jody's, died. It was last year, or the year before, and they'd known each other for 40 years. And Jody put her hand out, and a yellow butterfly came down and landed on her finger. But we don't have a lot of yellow butterflies in Maine. They're blue. But I've never seen a yellow butterfly. And I said, "Jody, ask her if that's Judy, and to flap her wings." And the butterfly sat there. It flapped its wings twice, and then it flew off. And Jody just said, "Oh, the love I feel in my heart." We've never seen another yellow butterfly. They can communicate with you, but you have to be open and receptive. So the way to heal, it's too big of a wound. You ask the divine for help. You can call it Buddha, Christ consciousness, love. Sometimes I call him Fred when I'm in a flippant mood. "Fred, you need help." He doesn't care, right? But we're all energy, and we're all love, and we're all connected. And we think this body is real. It's just a temporary car. And what happens when your car rusts all out and it goes plop? What do? You go buy another one. Don't give it a second thought, do you? But what if somebody said, "Would you rather go home and be back with the divine and stop driving, especially here in Florida. It's nuts. Do you want to go home? And you go, yeah, okay, let's go. So death is a choice point, and you want to be at peace with that and have as many issues resolved, forgiveness issues resolved as possible. Anyway, for people who are grieving, it's okay to grieve. I'm not putting it down. I lost a very dear friend, and I cried for a day, and I put his picture on my wall, and now it's been 2 weeks, and he said, Rod, it's okay to take the picture down now. I needed to see him. I needed to process that. We have to do that, and to push it down, well, it's going to come back as a disease. You see, so there's nothing wrong. But at some point, life wants to give to you more life. And it'll say, okay, you lost this loved one. You can still love them in your heart, but here's somebody new that wants to love you. And you say, I can still love this person, but there's another spot where I can love a new person. And you have to create space. Otherwise, you just spin in circles. It's not fun.
No, it's not. But I'm very grateful for you sharing that, because the comments that we get are very heartwarming often, heartbreaking often, and I just feel like that's helpful for so many people. I do want to ask you one more question, if that's okay with you. I'm
Sure.
wondering if you can tell me about how you treated your 3 cancers and stroke that you got later in your career.
I treat them like a movie. All three we'll back up. I had colon cancer in 2002. I had kidney cancer in 2014, testicular cancer in 2014, and then a massive stroke in 2016. I was paralyzed on the right body, left face. I was blind in this eye. I couldn't talk, but I could think. My brain was working. So in all these cases, the doctor said, Rod, I'm so sorry I have to tell you this, but you've got cancer. And I looked at him and I said, well, that's okay. You see, I neutralize the fear because you think, oh, I've got cancer. Well, that's true if you believe it's true. But if you say, this has no power over me, just like Christ did to Pontius Pilate, he killed the body, but guess what? 3 days later, he's back. Hello, everybody. It's me again. So you have the power of God within your heart, and cancer is darkness. That's all it is. You're short a dollar bill. Not too bad. You got cancer. Oh my God, right? Do you see the difference in fear? And you say, it has no power over me. So in my mind, in all these cases, I would say to the doctor, I hear you, but I'm not listening to you. I disagree with your diagnosis. Doctor, you're wrong. And I refuse to accept that. And it is my intention to heal. So by doing that, you align yourself because you are an extension of God, and God is healthy. Why are you sick? Right? And we think, oh, God's punishing me or somebody's punishing me. That's not true. God is pure love, and it's all he wants for you. So you have to open up your heart and let that light out. And you do that with saying, this, I'm not going to be afraid of it. In all 3 cases, I had surgery. That's called common sense. I'm not a bliss nanny where I just, don't worry about it. No, I got cancer. I'll take chemo. I'll take radiation. I'll get it cut out, whatever, because those are all forms of love that we find acceptable that God's giving to us. It's just for me, I said, no, I asked specifically, do I need this? And the answer is no, you're done. And so, yes, I had the cancers cut out, but it was in my mind, my intention is I am already healed. I am already healed. I used to run a cancer clinic when I first started, and these women came in. It was a breast cancer clinic. We'd bring in pie and candies and music and do a little dancing, get out of this blue funk of, I'm going to die. You don't have to. What if you had a choice? You know, you have a choice. So the more laughter and joy you can bring into it, the faster you're going to heal. It's just the way it is. Your body, you can be upset or you can be happy. They're two different nervous systems. If you're upset, you're going to feed the cancer. You're going to push God away. You don't want to do that. You want to say, I'm going to be happy and joyful. I have cancer. So what? It's not going to hurt me. And God comes in. And that's the accepting part. Then you rest. I want to hear what God has to say. So my meditations are always, I just sit in the chair, nice breath, and just say, Father, hold me. Father, reveal yourself to me. I don't ask him to heal my cancer because I think of it as a movie. If I don't like the movie, I hit the eject button and call it good. I put a different movie in. I change my mind. I want a, chitty chitty bang bang movie. I want something fun and happy, right? You change your mind and you go with it. So afterwards, in all three cancers, it was, you need chemo, you need radiation. I said, no, I don't. I'm out of here. I'm good. I'm still here. And the stroke, it was a big one. It was a really nasty one. And so they gave me the wrong medicine for the stroke. And I said, oh, when I give this medicine and I make a mistake, that guy's going to die in 10 minutes. And I can't talk. And I can't tell him that you just gave me the wrong medicine. And I'm like, this is not good. And so I thought, okay, there's nothing I can do. I just relaxed and I said, I just accept. So this is my shared death experience. And I'm in the room and I'm watching the minute hand go around. At 2 minutes, all of a sudden the whole ER became white light and everybody became pure energy and we were all connected. But I did not see the red aura of the divine. I said, And I thought to myself, if this is what it's like to die, this is really nice. It's like being on drugs or something, but I was really happy and comfortable and peaceful. And the voice came and said, you are going to walk out of this hospital tomorrow. Now I'm paralyzed. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I set the intention. I should have died. I didn't. And that evening, I'm ringing the call bell. I want to leave. I'm talking. My strength is back. My speech is still not great. I really shouldn't drive. I can't see. My balance was all over the place, and my strength was weak. But I did it well enough, and I walked out of that hospital the next day from the ICU. And they're going, you can't do that. It's a week in the ICU and 2 weeks in the hospital. I said, no, I'm good. Thank you. Goodbye. I took the power by accepting my condition, not being fearful, and say, I accept this. Okay, I'm not putting up a fight. I'm not afraid. So then I'm going to rest. What does God have to say to me? I want to hear what he has to say. He's the boss. And he says, yep, you're going to walk out of here. And so then I accepted that. I listened. And then I forgave it. I let it go. I didn't pick at it. I just forget it and let it go. And that divine love energy came into me. Now, it still took me 3 years to fully recover. But I set my intention, I am going to heal from this. And I did the stroke rehab. It was okay. I practiced talking real slow and deliberately so I could get these guys working. And then I went to the gym, Gold's Gym, and I got friends all over the place, and they're all helping me lift weights. So I had to start off with the pink barbells. Now, these guys are big, and they know me, and they're laughing at me. They're saying, Rod, pink is not your color. Anyway, but then I got stronger and stronger. I set my intention, I am going to survive. And I did that. But because it took me 3 years, you're granted 2 years on your medical license. And I couldn't pass the test. I had a lot of memory loss, so I couldn't write the orders properly. They say, we're really sorry. So I said, well, let's just retire it. And then as I healed, I wrote that book about my experiences. Then I started giving public speeches. Now I'm doing podcasts, and I just rewrote the book to put in very valuable information. And it just went to the publisher yesterday. And they went, this book is amazing.
I can attest to that. Since you sent it to me, I'm about halfway through and I've really been enjoying it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, can you tell the viewers about your book and how they can get it if it's out yet, the new version?
The new version, no, it's going through its second edit. It's not an expensive book. It's $14. I mean, anyway, I kept it cheap so that people could get it. But it does not have the near-death experience, and I took out 2 chapters on death and dying because that's my second book, The Unreality of Death. And I want to talk about, the suicides and the murders and the trauma patients and heart attacks, strokes, the fear of death, and lead you through it. And then the second part of the new book has, how do you do it? There's step-by-step instructions. Lauren, how do you want to connect? How do you want to learn how to do this? You obviously do, but you don't know how. And you're saying, page 101, start with this. But this book, it's about me mostly as a mystic and what we talked about. There's just a lot more stories of saving people's lives. And then there's about, I astral traveled through the galaxy, that I could do that. And then eventually I met God. And what was that like, to be nothing but pure consciousness in a sphere of infinite dimensions and feel the divine merge with you. And suddenly you're lost. I can't even describe it. But once you've gotten there once, you can go back and go back. So in my meditations now, I can go back. So there's that, the astral travel, some of my stories, the development of spiritual growth, hearing, vision, meeting Christ. And then the third part is, now I help heal the world. So I sit in a chair and I meditate and I hold the whole sonship, the whole world in light. So I look at all the crazy politics going on, and it's like these are 5-year-old children and everybody's calling for love. They're just talking in a foreign language. So I don't condemn, I don't shame, I don't blame. I just say, you need love. The whole world needs love. And it's part of the mass consciousness of elevation. So I call that being a light worker. And you can do it. I've had people individually be healed, groups be healed, the world help it to be healed. And when you do this, at a certain point, it's really, this whole world, there's not a single death on this planet for just a short moment. And you're going to get to that and hear stories of people that, I won't spoil it for you.
Sounds good. Okay, well, you've sold me already. I'll be reading that for sure. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your time a lot. Like I've mentioned when we were speaking earlier, like this is my first time interviewing a doctor, and I feel like the perspective is something very new and something I was really excited for. So I appreciate your time a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing that I would mention, I do have a website, So if you want to read some more, I also do counseling. So if I can be of help to people, I do that. And there's a little bit about the book, but so it's a 50-50 call on the book. It's going to take a few weeks to publish, but this one's much better, I think.
Sounds good.
I would say if somebody's in going into a transition phase right now, getting ready to die, you should probably read it.
Okay.
Because those 2 chapters on death and dying are in there. And that has been very helpful to people. So that's my only plug.
Awesome. Well, I'll be including it all in the description. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thank you so much to Dr. Chelberg for this incredible conversation. And thank you for watching T&H Afterlife. Since you've made it this far, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to this channel. And if you're looking for another near-death experience video to watch, I recommend my interview with Danian Brinkley. He was struck by lightning and visited a city in heaven. Thank you.